All right. Hello, my name is Andrew Matson. This is Megan, my associate. We are going over when did the Anthropocene actually begin. So I'm going to go ahead and start my side of the right side of the debate. So Anthropocene is the time period in which humans began to have a fully lasting impact on the earth. I believe that the start of this was when man first began to hunt. This led to just enough hunting. It started off as just enough for hunting to survive and provide for people. But now truly seeing the very real first accounts of extinction of species due to the harvesting of animals and sport hunting is very dramatic and a very real event that's happening today. That's why large land animals have disappeared off the face of the earth like the woolly mammoths. Granted, not all animals were killed in hunting or eaten by humans. Some have died by other causes. But then again, let us talk about some other species that have gone completely extinct, such as the famous dodo bird. The dodo bird was hunted to extinction about 100 years ago, and it was only discovered in 1581. I got that from an article by Nelson Bryan. Granted, in the article I read that the dodo bird was flightless and very passive, which are not positive traits to have as a bird. Which have made them very more susceptible to prey. But the point in the matter is not so much that humans are bad for hunting for food as a necessity to live, but more that our planet is becoming very overpopulated. In the article I read, it talked about how we are currently in the midst of a sixth mass extinction event due to humans. And Harvard biologist E.O. Wilson says that we are losing species around 3 every hour, or 30,000 species a year. Some other forms, such as agriculture or pollution, may contribute to those numbers, but in an article it stated the first wave of extinctions targeted large vertebrate animals from hunting. I got that from a Human Population Growth and Extinction article, which obviously I highly agree with, since the species will never come back and we're completely wiped out. Sorry, talking way too fast. Well, I myself do completely support hunting in the aspect of population control if it is carefully regulated, such as waterfowl. I do believe that with the majority of people that it may need to eventually become almost non-existent. Like I said earlier, how the majority impact of hunting is the number of people here on Earth and how they will need a demand for food. That hunting will no longer be a thing of a pastime necessarily, but more of a demand for food. So even if hunting as a sport gets cut out now, we will come back to the ways of hunters and gatherers, and we will eventually hunt everything until extinction. Like for instance, in the past year, a dentist shot the famed lion Cecile, who is an inner refugee, and lions are not officially on the endangered species list, but dwindle in numbers largely every year. I also believe under the category of fishing, you could classify as hunting, and commercial fishing has severely put in danger many species of fish, even some by accident. Because when you fish for one thing, you may catch another fish even though you don't mean to, and it could get caught in a net, and by the time you find out that it's the wrong fish, it may be too late. But that is going into fishing, which could lead to many more justifiable factors that is more regulated with fish farms and hatcheries, and that is all I have to discuss on the matter.
My side of the argument, I will be arguing that the beginning of the Anthropocene era is because of fossil fuels. The Anthropocene era is a newly recognized era that was caused by human influence. Though humans have been making small impacts on the earth from hunting and agriculture, the biggest changes in the world have been in the last 300 years or so, when we discovered fossil fuels. This was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and since then, the Earth has begun rapid climate change, and there is no explanation besides humans. Before this Industrial Revolution, all climate changes in the past had been due to natural causes, such as volcanic eruptions, changes in greenhouse gases that happen naturally, and the changes in solar energy. The Industrial Revolution began 300 years ago when humans started replacing manual labor with machinery. This means using fossil fuels. One of the largest pieces of evidence that was impacting our world was an abrupt boom in population. Humans have been around for 2.2 million years. Just at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, which was less than 300 years ago, the population was 700 million. Now, Not only 250 years later, the Earth has increased by more than 6 billion people, with a current population of over 7 billion. So even if you were to say humans have had a big impact on our Earth before this, it is in no comparison to what have happened to our Earth since the start of the Industrial Revolution. With this growth in population, this means a drastic increase in the need for natural and man-made resources. We need more space for agriculture and for living, more energy use, and more waste produced by all these people that is polluting our environment. We also have found that natural resources we thought we would never run out of are dwindling, and we will not be around forever at the pace we are using them up. These are things such as coal and fossil fuels. And though the ability to use these things is something that has changed the way we make things and live our lives, it comes at a huge price to our environment and the health of all living things. Due to fossil fuels and farming machinery and the chemicals that are used in farming, nearly 69% of our freshwater sources are polluted. We are also killing our natural habitats to make more urban areas for this growing population. This is running out animal species and killing forests and other landscapes to create more room for humans. Over the last 300 years, and even more so in the last 50 years, changes in the environment have been occurring faster than ever. The temperatures are rising, sea levels are rising, ocean temperatures are rising, and ice sheets are shrinking, and carbon dioxide levels are rising more than ever. For centuries, CO2 has never gone about 300 ppm. Just in the last few decades, the levels have far exceeded that and are now rising above 400. Before the 1800s, it was never a question to whether we as a species were hurting the environment, but in the last 50 or so years, it has become more apparent than ever that it is humans who are accelerating climate change and changing the Earth more rapidly and profoundly than natural processes have ever done.
So now going to rebuttal against what she said, while fossil fuels do impact the Earth greatly, they are a limited resource as well, but the main benefactor today we have electricity cars, we have things that run on ethanol, which come from agriculture, which is also a very big impact on the environment. But compared to hunting, people hunt for exotic animals, which leads to their extinction, such as trophy hunts or medicinal uses in Eastern Asia. And the other big thing is when we get bored of one thing as human nature, we automatically move on to the next. So once one species goes extinct, we're going to go right on to the next one down the line. And how long does that line actually exist? One perfect way to explain this is food trends. I mean, one day people are craving sushi, the next day they want steak. After that, they want burgers, then they're moving on to chicken and tacos. It's just a never-ending cycle. Another thing that was very big was in later days in the 1900s how the bisons were slaughtered on the plains by train hunting. And there was nothing benefited from them. They just outright killed them for the land. No meat was used. There was no benefit. Also, hunting animals is so region specific that there's no room for them to grow and prosper in other regions, such as elk and sheep like to live in mountain terrain, and then birds and waterfowl live on lakes and rivers. So I think that hunting was the start of it because first, obviously, man had to eat before it ever needed fossil fuels to go into moving machinery or cars or transportation. So that's my rebuttal.
Just because humans were on Earth doesn't mean they were making a huge impact on it. We were here for more than 2 million years before things started having large effects. We were just hunting and farming, which may have killed some animals, but it was not having large effects on the climate. When looking at the trends of how things have changed over the last few million years, everything remained constant until a couple hundred years ago. Now we are building hundreds of dams, using up millions of tons of fertilizer that we weren't using before this huge boom in population. We are now doing damage to our planet and to our atmosphere that is irreversible. Because we have rose our consumption of paper in the last 60 years from less than 100 million tons of paper to over 4 million tons of paper, which is putting many species in danger from the forests we are destroying. Before the Industrial Revolution, we were limited to the amount of damage we could do as merely hunter-gatherers and farmers. With all the natural resources and energy we are using up, along with the amount of pollution we are causing, there is no question that we as humans have left our mark on the Earth in the last 250 years more than ever.